Dust, an Elysian Tale. Before recently I had never heard of this title, and if it wasn't for seeing it on Steam's Midweek Madness, I likely never would have. An Elysian Tale is an independently developed action RPG originally released for the 360 but is now on Steam. It takes place in a colorful fantasy world where all of the characters are anthropomorphic animals. I didn't expect much at first, because it was an impulse buy, but I am very glad I bought it.
Our world has fallen to fade. Its great works long since complete. Its storied civilizations long since fallen to dust.
From the start, you're introduced with a bit of vague backstory and a scene where you control a silhouette by pressing X to wage war, which I thought was pretty cool, figuring this was the main character, as I mentioned him cutting through entire armies. Apparently he was killed by just a young boy, and it turns out I misunderstood what the narrator was talking about until much later, as the real main character, Dust, is revealed. Dust is awakened by a floating sentient sword named Ara, and its guardian, a little flying cat bat known as Fidget, who serves as the game's Zelda fairy, though much more awesome in my opinion. Dust apparently summoned the sword, but has no memory of it, or even of who he is, really.
I don't even know how I got here.
The story is a little cliché, but I got absorbed into it as it played out. Dust has amnesia, which is something I've seen a few times before, but it seems to work well in games. You see, if the main character starts out with amnesia, then they know as much as the player does and learn things at the same rate. If it's done wrong, then generally the player knows more than the main character, and to me that feels awkward. This game seems to do it right, however. I never know much more than Dust does. They also put an interesting twist on the whole reasoning of him having amnesia, so it's a surprise when you learn who Dust really is. The game has a few interesting characters, like Dust's companion Fidget, for instance. She's annoying, but still manages to be funny. She breaks the fourth wall when I don't expect it, like talking about mashing buttons and wondering how you can fit a sheep almost as big as you inside your inventory.
Wait, did you just...
I find her adorable too, particularly when she's frightened.
Oh, look at those little paws and those ears and those eyes.
There's also a merchant who hides his identity from you. It reminds me a lot of a certain other merchant from that zombie game.
Ah, he'll buy them at a high price.
Well, yes. Yes, I will.
The villagers from the main village Aurora are also quite interesting for the most part. For example, there's the guard who's suspicious of you, making him fun to mess with.
Like it?
All right, that's enough. Why don't you two leave me alone now?
There's also some easily excitable purple rabbit, some crazy dude who lost his box. What the hell?
I can hear its whispers coming from below. Down, deep down in the earth. If you're ever down there, please, you must find my box. Return it at once. And whatever you do, do not open the box.
Ah, sure, Reed, I'll find your box. Oh, hell no, I'm opening this right away.
Ah! This game isn't that much like Metroid.
And other characters that have accents that you'll either love or hate. Like an Australian guy and some French guy. Yeah, you'll hate him either way. I won't include too much about the story, but I really enjoyed it personally. The animations for Dust are pretty good, but for most of the other characters it's sort of, they look like pin puppets. The cutscenes and style of the art in the portraits are good, but seem kind of off to me too. Maybe it's something to do with the faces, because I like the way Dust looks, and you don't see his face, at least not until later, and then I think that he looked better with his massive hat. I wonder how he sees out of that now that I mention it.
He can see everything. It's spooky, really.
It's probably just personal preference with the styling. I really can't talk bad about this art. Despite that, however, the scenery and the foreign background are absolutely amazing. There are parts where you go underground to find alien-like trees that glow vibrantly, a gorgeous snowy mountainside containing caves with beautiful spires of ice, and a field with massive statues depicting a grand battle, including areas where you're actually traversing on the statues, which is a nice touch. The soundtrack is freaking awesome, enough for me to buy it. The mostly symphonic music is by Hyperduck Studios, and it does a wonderful job at immersing me into this world. The sound effects are also well done, convincing me that I'm slashing up baddies and casting devastating spells. The voice acting is alright, but could be better. I like the voice of Dust. It makes me kind of think of a younger Solid Snake who isn't a chain smoker.
I'm sorry, I think I misheard before. You said your name was Fidget?
But I'm probably just crazy. Fidget's voice succeeds at being obnoxiously adorable, and Ara's voice is good too, but some of the villagers' voices aren't that convincing.
Why don't you bother Augustine or some other such buffoon?
I realize that many of the voices are likely independent as well, and under no circumstances do I consider the voice acting to be bad. And the game is still fully voiced, which is great. It's just sometimes somebody says something that brings me out of the immersion a little bit. Nothing big, but just something noteworthy.
Fidget and Dust, eh? Not from around here, are you?
Dust, an Elysian Tale, is very fun to play. From the very beginning, it says you're going to be a single warrior taking down massive armies, and it holds to that. It has many RPG elements like gaining experience and leveling up. You also collect items and currency that enemies drop, get upgrades from defeating bosses, and other Metroid-esque power-ups that help you get more places, like the slide, which, like the Morph Ball, is really unnecessary as Dust could easily just crawl through those holes.
The only way you're getting through is by sliding. I'd kick you through myself, but you know, I got these fat little legs.
Yeah. The combat in this game is very solid. I never once got frustrated with the controls, and the only glitch I ever encountered was with a zombie in a wall. But it was still challenging for sure, at least on the two harder difficulties. Dust and Fidget have quite the repertoire of combat moves. Dust can do massive damage with different combos of his main attack, and also with a move called the Dust Storm, where he whirls his sword around like crazy. It doesn't do much damage, and he hurts himself if he uses it for too long, but it looks damn cool and it racks up the combo count for more experience points. Dust can also parry, which is risky as you must face the enemy and timing is everything, though rewarding as Dust can counter with his own attack right after, and parrying sometimes leaves an enemy stunned. There is also a lot of aerial combat, and most of what Dust can do on the ground he can also do in the air. For instance, there is an aerial dust storm that has him flying all over the place. Fidget has, well, that.
That was, very pretty.
But when combined with the dust storm becomes, whoa! That was pretty cool. Her magic is regulated by an energy bar that replenishes either over time automatically, or when you hit enemies with melee attacks. She also gets different spells like this awesome lightning bolt, and the fiery spires that rain down death. Anyways, you can upgrade your prowess by obtaining items that give bonuses. These items include things such as magic rings and augments for Ara. While nothing you equip changes Dust's appearance, they upgrade his stats, be it basic attack defense type stat, or something that isn't a stat, like increased item drops or health regeneration. Enemies and chests will drop these items, though usually they'll drop a blueprint for them instead, which you'll need to take to a blacksmith to construct it for you. You can also set a healing item, so that you can use it without pausing the game, which is, well, really nice. As far as enemies go, they are quite various. There are basic grunts that like to jump behind you and punish you if you're not alert. There are these flying enemies and bulkier enemies like slimes and giants, which take different strategies to defeat. The game throws new enemies at you every so often, so it doesn't get too repetitive. There are also bosses, some of which are epic, but others of which are forgettable. They have really good build-up to them, though. Of course, the gameplay isn't all about the battle system. There are some nice platforming aspects with non-combatant things to focus on, like stalactites falling from the ceiling and spikes on the walls and various other things. The game also has a focus on the adventure aspect. There are a lot of hidden treasures lying around, and you need to find keys to open them. They sometimes contain useful things like blueprints to craft new items, but always contain food and money items. There are also cages that you can unlock with these keys that hold characters from other indie games, like Super Meat Boy, though most I didn't recognize. Is that Fez? And is that Scrooge McDuck? Scrooge McDuck? What? With headphones? They pay nice homage to the games they're from as far as I can tell, though. On that note, the game likes to throw references to other games at you from time to time. There's a merchant I mentioned before, but there are also items like the mysterious wall chicken, which plays on Castlevania. There's not just the main quest to follow either. In the main village, Aurora, you can get side quests from the villagers, some of which are rather entertaining, like finding a missing possessed box for some insane guy which he insists you don't open. And this guy is crazy! Walk running away, crazy person! Another thing to note is that there are a lot of customization options for playing the game. You can change the HUD around, which is useful depending on what kind of monitor you're using. And a few other things that I don't ever seem to see in other games, like a colorblind mode, which is great, actually. I'd never heard of that before, but it sounds like a great idea. Dust: An Elysian Tale has some minor faults, but I believe the strengths of the game outweigh them by megatons, and I really enjoyed it. It's one of the best single-player experiences I've had in a long time, which is nice considering I bought it as an impulse buy off of Steam's Midweek Madness. I definitely recommend it, especially for the price at $15. Really, go buy it now, go get it. It's one of the best games I've ever played, actually. Furthermore, I found that... Wait, that can't be... What?! It was made by just one person? That's incredible. This game is a marvel. Everything in this game, minus the music and voice acting, was done by one Dean Dodrell. That means he did both the design and programming elements all by himself over the course of about 4 years. He even ported it to PC by himself and did a wonderful job at doing so. That takes pure dedication, especially considering that design and programming aspects of developing a game are very different from each other. Just go buy the game, log off of YouTube, close off of insert browser name here, go on Steam or Xbox Live Arcade and buy Dust: An Elysian Tale. Just do it, Apple.